Yeah, it probably does mean that, to be honest, Bob. And even though it's a very sensitive time for people, they want it over with. And they don't want to mess about. They don't want to spend lots of money. They don't want days in court. They want somebody to cut to the heart of the problem and come up with a solution. And I think that's my USP, really. And I see somebody and I can almost on day one say, this is where this case needs to settle. This is what we need to do. This is the plan. And this is what we need to work towards.
Is it sometimes easier said than done, though?
Of course it is. And why is that? For two reasons, really. Obviously, it's really, really difficult because you've got two people who may be poles apart in what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it. Or one of the main difficulties is one party doesn't believe the other. One party thinks there's a hell of a lot more money and there doesn't seem to be. Or there is a lot more money and one party doesn't want to give it away. So it can be really, really tricky if people are miles apart from each other. But also, I mean, I'm a solicitor, but at the end of the day, there are some solicitors who may drag it out. You know, that's what the public think, and we're not perceived well in the public eye. And that does concern me sometimes. So when I see a client, I want to get to the heart of the problem. That's why people say I thunder through my cases, because I don't want to just go through the process, because that's not going to help anybody. To go slowly and laboriously through the process is not necessarily the right thing to do.
Do you feel quite sad when you listen to some cases sometimes?
Absolutely. It can't help but touch you. I used to do cases that involved child abuse. I used to do, many moons ago, legal aid work, and I worked for families who had low budget income and they had a lot of difficulties. And I actually acted for parents who had abused their children, because everybody deserves a voice. And I remember reading my very first report of a mother who was being negligent to her children. And I read the report about her and her upbringing and her life, and it was terribly sad, and I'll never forget it. And I think it helps me think you should never judge anybody, because she'd never been loved, and her definition of love was really pain and suffering and abuse. But those things meant that there was somebody there for her, even though that somebody gave her something that was never going to help her or nurture her in any way, shape or form.
But don't you get angry sometimes when you were reading things like that? I mean, however much you might have had sympathy, and you just say in this case, you know, you could trace it back, you could see why she was like she was. But didn't you ever get angry and think, you know, here are young children defenceless, and this has been happening in their lives?
Do you get angry? Yeah, it's hard to say, really. There's more to it. There's nothing that's black and white. It's more grey. Do I get angry? I get very, very sad. And I think, I'll tell you what I get angry at is the system. I think the legal justice system can let people down sometimes. So now that's a scenario, another scenario where delay and process is hugely prejudicial to children who have no voice at that particular time, who can't always say what they feel and think, although we try and provide them with an avenue to do that. Now that's where I get angry, when the system lets children down and we take too much time in making a much needed decision for children in vulnerable situations.
Because of course in Birmingham, I mean, there's been all sorts of problems with their children's department, the City Council, haven't there? It was called a public disgrace, wasn't it, a couple of years ago. They're working to sort that out. But it just makes for a very difficult situation. We've got to take a break. We'll come back and discuss that point again in a moment. For the moment, Zara Pabani, thank you. As I say, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk.